Okay, episode 14 of DC Character Histories. It's been about 2 months since I last made one. The last one I did was Hugo Strange, and I thought it was about time that I made another episode. So today's episode, we happen to land on Hawk and Dove. Now, many of you may know Hawk and Dove from the ongoing TV series Titans, where Alan Ritchson plays Hawk, and the absolutely beautiful Minka Kelly plays Dove. Now, I will be honest with you all, outside of the Titans show and other animated adaptations they may have appeared in, my knowledge on these two characters are actually quite limited. I have compiled as much of their backstory as I could to not only give you information about them, but for me to gain info about them as well. I'm sure these two have had personalized or one-off stories in comic book history, but for this video, I'm going to try and keep it simple and just talk about them together. So, like usual, before we get into their story, let's look at some of their character data. So their first debut was Showcase number 75, which was actually June 1968. Their real names are Hank Hall, which is Hawk, and Dawn Granger, which is Dove. They are usually based out of Washington, D.C. Height is 6'1" for Hawk and 5'9" for Dove. Weight is 197 pounds for Hawk, 120 pounds for Dove. Brown eyes for Hawk, blue eyes for Dove, brown hair for Hawk, and white hair for Dove. As for powers and abilities, Hawk has enhanced strength, agility, body density and vision, and a healing factor. For Dove, she has enhanced strength, intelligence, flight, and a danger sense. Their allies are Teen Titans, Batman, and Deadman, along with many others, and their enemies are Monarch, Condor, Swan, and many others. So let's start at the beginning with Hank and Dawn Hall. In the Silver and Bronze Age, Hawk and Dove were actually created as brothers named Hank and Dawn. After discovering criminals wanted to murder their father, they wished to have powers to save him. The Gods of War and Peace, or otherwise known as the Lords of Chaos and Order, answered that wish. Forceful and aggressive Hank was turned into Hawk, and calm and sensible Dawn was turned into Dove. They used these powers to save their father and to continue fighting crime. Although after a year of poor sales, their comic series was canceled, and they were then introduced as regular members of the Teen Titans. Over the years, their appearances became more scarce before the eventual crisis on Infinite Earths, and during this event, Dove ended up dying from the Anti-Monitor while trying to save a young boy from shadow demons. This, of course, left Hawk alone. Without Dove's lighthearted and peaceful manner, that meant there was nothing to keep Hawk's aggressive nature in line. That made him difficult to work with moving forward. So, moving now into Hank Hall and Dawn Granger. In the modern age, Hawk and Dove received a new miniseries, which spanned a year, 1988 to 1989. And this is where I personally think the team-up gets a little bit better. A woman named Dawn Granger mysteriously received the powers of Dove after the death of Dawn Hall. This Dove, however, was a little different from the previous one. She was faster, stronger, more confident, and had expanded mental capabilities. Dove still meshed well with Hawk as he stayed aggressive, and Dove chose to fight defensively, outsmarting her opponent and remaining in control of a battle. In this brand new miniseries, that apparently sold really well at the time, Hawk and Dove are lured to a mystical land called Druspa Tau. This happens to be the home of the Lords of Chaos and Order. On this island, T'Char and Taratea are two beings that are discovered to have given the powers of Hawk and Dove to Hank and Dawn. T'Char and Taratea did this because they wanted to prove to the gods of chaos and order that the two forces of aggression and rationality could work together, and also the fact that they were both in love with one another. Convincing Hawk and Dove to absorb the essence of their respective creators, T'Char and Taratea, Hawk and Dove's powers increased. Dove could now fly and was also bulletproof, while Hawk gained super strength and invulnerability. The Hawk's demise. Now, the Hawk and Dove series was starting to dip once again, and this is where DC decided to make a big change up for this particular dynamic duo. In 1991, a comic series came out called Armageddon 2001. In this story, a character named Matthew Ryder lived in the year 2030 on a dystopian Earth ruled by a tyrant named Monarch. With the world and Matthew himself unhappy with this rule, he decides to go back in time to 1991, where Monarch seems to have first showed up, and before 2001, when Monarch fully conquers the world. On Matthew's way to 1991 to help the heroes of this time stop Monarch, he doesn't realize that Monarch follows him back in time as well. In a battle against the Justice League, Monarch retreats with Dove. Hawk manages to catch up to Monarch just to see him kill Dove. Hawk furiously beats Monarch for taking another Dove away from him, and he does end up beating Monarch to death. After defeating Monarch, the crazy reveal is that Hawk unmasks Monarch and discovers that Hank himself is actually Monarch in the future. Hawk then also discovers that Monarch, or his future self, was creating a device to enslave humanity. And with all of the emotions in Hawk's head, he decides to keep the balance and take the mantle of Monarch. Hank is no longer Hawk, but now a tyrannical monster creating a machine to enslave the human race. Very, very weird turn. Eventually, the Justice League does catch up to him to thwart his plans. Monarch and Captain Atom end up having an intense duel, but the energy of Captain Atom mixing with Monarch's suit sends them back to the age of dinosaurs, where their battle comes to a stalemate and they have no choice but to stay in the Triassic era. Now, with Hank's history as Monarch, I did say I wanted to keep this video mainly about Hawk and Dove, so I'm going to be skipping a bit of details here. I'm going to try and fit 5 or 6 major comic events in a couple of sentences, as these stories aren't just about Hank Hall, but they're about the DC universe as a whole. So essentially, after Monarch, which is now Hank, and Captain Atom get trapped in the Triassic era, Monarch is helped by a 1960s time traveler, Nathaniel Atom. Atom trains Monarch on how to use time travel, which allows him to return to his respective timeline. When returning, he chooses to go by a new name, Extant. Extant then joins forces with a fallen Hal Jordan, who at the time was Parallax, to reshape the timeline of the entire universe. In this attempt, Extant is responsible for the deaths of 3 major Justice Society of America characters: Atom, Hourman, and Dr. Midnight. Extant is eventually defeated when an android version of Hourman creates a flaw in Extant's power, sending him to a time in the past where he is killed in a plane crash. So, very long story short, Hank does eventually die. The return of Dawn Granger. In the Justice Society of America run in 2003, it is revealed that a woman placed in a coma for all these years has finally woken up. Of course, that woman being Dawn Granger. It is then revealed that the villain, Mordru, who is also part of the Lords of Chaos, orchestrated the death of Dawn and the tyranny of Hank, who eventually turned into Monarch and then Extant. Now that Dawn is back to being Dove, she needs a Hawk, and with Hank dead, the Lords grant Holly Granger, the sister of Dawn, as the new Hawk. This sisterly duo ends up joining the Teen Titans and are featured in many comic book runs and Justice League type level events, but nothing with them as the main focus. Hawk from the dead. In the very popular Blackest Night series, when the Black Rings are reanimating people from death, Hank Hall returns. Hank ends up attacking Dawn and Holly, who is now the new Hawk. Unfortunately for Holly, Hank manages to get a hold of her and rips her heart out, killing her and turning her into a new member of the Black Lantern Corps. With 2 dead Hawks hunting Dove, she returns to Titan's Tower for help, only to see them battling other Black Lanterns. In this battle, Holly manages to grab hold of Dove, but before she has the chance to kill her, Dove spontaneously blasts white radiation from her body. It capacitates Holly and all other Black Lanterns in the area. Dove does eventually learn from Indigo One, a member of the Indigo Lantern tribe, that she possesses the White Lantern of Creation. So basically, Dove's mere presence destroys Black Lanterns. During the final battle, Dove and her energy are pulled into the Black Lantern's central battery. Inside, she learns that the Anti-Monitor is the mastermind behind all of this. With the help of the other 7 Lantern Corps, they defeat Anti-Monitor and the Black Lantern threat. Hank Hall gets brought back to life in the aftermath, but Holly unfortunately dies. Hawk and Dove Brightest Day. In the follow-up to Blackest Night, Hawk, which is once again Hank, and Dove, who remains to be Dawn, are accompanied by Deadman when they are mysteriously transported to a crater in New Mexico that contains a dying White Lantern battery. The battery, or the entity, gives the 3 of them some warnings. A specific warning to Hawk was for him to save Dove from an attack by Captain Boomerang. The entity also required them to find a successor for the White Lantern Corps. For a time, Dove and Deadman travel together to find a successor. After trying many candidates, they go to Gotham to offer the ring to Batman, believing he would be a good candidate, but the ring rejects him. After that, the ring ends up choosing Deadman. The ring should have just chosen Deadman from the beginning instead of just wasting time journeying around, but it is what it is. After spending all of this time together though, Dove and Deadman end up falling in love. After some time passes, Hawk, Dove, and Deadman are fighting the Dark Avatar, which is Swamp Thing infected by a Black Lantern ring. During this fight, Captain Boomerang happens to be there and throws a boomerang at Dove, the exact warning the white entity gave Hawk. Hawk is too slow to stop the boomerang, but Deadman isn't. However, saving Dove ended Deadman's life. Dove and Deadman share their love one last time before he passed. After this, Hawk and Dove become members of the Birds of Prey, and Dove is even a member of Wonder Woman's all-female team. Now for the New 52. In this continuity, Hank and Dawn remain Hawk and Dove, although this time they are introduced to new villains, Condor and Swan, who have similar powers. Hawk and Dove's first mission in the New 52 is to save President Barack Obama from Condor and Swan. The president of the USA was literally threatened by birds. But let's be honest here, Obama could have done it on his own. Now, as for what happened during Rebirth or wherever the DC Comics storylines are right now, I did not get much information about where they currently are in their story or even if they have any pivotal stories at the moment. So there you go. There is a vast majority of the history of Hawk and Dove. And I gotta be honest with you, I do know a lot about DC history and DC characters in general. Hawk and Dove are characters that I don't know everything about, and I'm so out of the loop with Hawk and Dove, I gotta be honest here. I did not know they were supernatural characters. I did not know they even had powers. I think there is a little bit of recency bias in the sense of the information I am getting from them. The fact that in Titans, they are simply just vigilantes with no powers who dress up in costumes and fight crime. That is what I am used to them seeing. And I gotta be honest, I kind of like that take a little more then them having these supernatural powers from lords of a mystical land. You know, it is very comic booky. It does fit for comic books. But when I do think of Hawk and Dove, I think my perception is very centered off of the Titans show. That is kind of how I see them now. So knowing they are these beings of power, it's not the worst thing in the world, of course, like it is what it is, but I do appreciate them more as just human vigilantes. And also too, it is interesting to see that Hank and Dawn do not have a relationship with one another, which is once again another piece of recency bias and information. I am so used to the Titans show, and I'm so used to seeing their portrayal in that show that they have a relationship in that. But maybe it's because I'm so used to the show and I'm not used to their comic counterpart, but I do like the fact that they have a relationship together. I think it's very, very fitting, and I was surprised to see that not once in comic history did they ever have a relationship in that type of way, and if they ever did, it was hardly dealt with. But overall, very interesting. It was cool to see how Hank had a time where he demised into villainy, and it was cool to see that Dove was very powerful in defeating the Black Lantern Corps. There are a lot of interesting parts of their history. Now it's your turn, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Hawk and Dove, what you think of them in the Titans show, what you think of them in comic book history, if you like them, if you don't. But that is it for this one, guys, and until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.